Valora Prime was the kind of place where the air shimmered with possibilities, and smog, the sprawling city planet, was a kaleidoscope of alien cultures, technologies, and a fair amount of crime. It was here, amidst the cacophony of starship engines and the glow of neon advertisements in languages from 100 worlds, that Cale Varan nursed his second drink of the night. Cale was not a man of extravagance. His table at the Rusted Hull Cantina, a dubious establishment with a reputation for questionable clientele, was tucked into a shadowy corner. The drink, a murky blue concoction, fizzed ominously. It wasn't good, but it was cheap, and Cale didn't expect much from life these days. He was midway through a sip when the cantina door hissed open, and silence fell like a guillotine. Kyle glanced up, his instincts honed by years of mercenary work. A trio of figures stepped inside, their presence demanding attention. The first was unmistakably alien, a towering being with iridescent scales that rippled like liquid metal. Its elongated limbs moved with an unsettling grace, and its eyes, black and fathomless, scanned the room. Behind it, a shorter figure in a flowing robe glided forward, their face obscured by a veil that shimmered with shifting constellations. The last figure was a human, or close enough, wearing a suit so pristine it looked like it had never encountered a speck of dust. Cale sighed. Trouble. The veiled figure spoke first, their voice a harmonious blend of tones that seemed to echo in Cale's mind. Cale Varan, we have need of your expertise. Cale leaned back in his chair, tilting his drink toward them. You've got the wrong guy. My expertise is in avoiding people like you. The veiled figure didn't flinch. We represent the Quarrath family. The name hung in the air, heavy with significance. Even Cale, who prided himself on avoiding the galaxy's politics, had heard of the Quarraths. They were one of the wealthiest and most influential families in the sector, known for their eccentricities and their absolute disdain for humans. Cale raised an eyebrow. The Quarraths didn't think they'd be caught dead talking to someone like me. What? Did they run out of alien bounty hunters? The human in the suit stepped forward, clearing his throat. This is not a matter of prejudice, Mr. Varan. It is a matter of necessity. Kyle snorted. Necessity, huh? Let me guess. They need someone to unclog a drain, and I'm the only one dumb enough to take the job? The veiled figure's tone grew sharper. Their daughter, Lyrith, has been taken. The Quarraths believe you are the only one who can bring her back. Cale set his drink down. The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. A missing person case? From the Quarraths. He wasn't sure if he should feel flattered or deeply suspicious. I'm not a hero, Kyle said finally. I'm just a guy with a plasma blade and a bad attitude. Why me? The veiled figure hesitated, as if weighing their words. The Quarraths believe in the prophecy. Kyle blinked. The what now? The human in the suit sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. The Quarraths have a unique worldview. They believe that only a human warrior can retrieve their daughter safely. Something about resilience, unpredictability, and, your primitive charm. Kyle barked out a laugh. Primitive charm? That's a new one. Do I get a certificate for that? The towering alien, silent until now, rumbled in a voice that sounded like grinding stones. Do not mock the prophecy. Cale waved a hand. Fine, no mocking. But let me get this straight. You want me, a guy who spends most of his time dodging bar tabs, to go on a rescue mission for one of the most powerful families in the galaxy? Sounds like a setup. The veiled figure leaned closer, their voice softening. This is no trick, Cale Varan. The Quarraths are desperate. They are willing to pay whatever price you name. Cale hesitated. The offer was tempting, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being drawn into something far bigger than a simple rescue mission. Still, credits were credits, and his account was dangerously close to empty. All right, he said finally. I'll hear them out. But if this turns out to be a wild goose chase, I'm charging double. The Quarrath estate was a masterpiece of alien architecture, all sweeping curves and bioluminescent panels that pulsed like a heartbeat. Kyle felt out of place the moment he stepped inside, his battered armor and unkempt hair a stark contrast to the estate's pristine elegance. The Quarrath family awaited him in a chamber that looked more like a throne room than a living space. The patriarch, a massive being with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbows, regarded Kale with an expression that could only be described as mildly horrified. "So," Kale said, breaking the silence, "where's the kid?" The matriarch, a willowy figure with translucent wings that shimmered like a soap bubble, stepped forward. Her voice was musical, but her words carried a weight that made Kyle stand a little straighter. "Our daughter Lyrith was taken from us 2 cycles ago. We have exhausted all other options. You are our last hope." Kyle scratched his chin. "Last hope, huh? No pressure." The patriarch bristled. "This is no laughing matter, human." Kyle held up his hands. "Hey, I'm just trying to lighten the mood. You ever try to rescue someone with a frown on your face? Doesn't work." To his surprise, the matriarch smiled, a small, fleeting thing, but genuine. "Perhaps we were right to choose you after all." Kyle wasn't sure whether to feel flattered or alarmed. All he knew was that he was in deep now, and there was no turning back. "Fine," he said, crossing his arms. "Tell me everything." As the Quarraths began to recount the details of Lyrith's disappearance, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be the strangest and most dangerous he'd ever undertaken. But then again, that was just another day in the life of Kale Varan. The Starship Vanguard's Edge was an old model, a patchwork of mismatched panels and jury-rigged systems that hummed with the kind of personality only years of questionable repairs could give. It wasn't pretty, but it was fast, reliable, and, most importantly, Kale Varan's. As the ship hurtled through hyperspace, Kale lounged in the cockpit, boots propped up on the console staring at the swirling blue void outside. His AI companion, K1X, floated nearby, its spherical body adorned with blinking lights and a single glowing lens that served as its eye. "You know," Kix began, its voice a perfect blend of dry wit and smugness, "I've been running the numbers on this mission, and the odds of success are, well, let's just say you'd have better luck winning a galactic lottery." Kyle smirked. "Good thing I don't believe in odds." "Ah, yes," Kix replied, "the infamous human trait, blind optimism. It's adorable, really." Kyle chuckled, adjusting the straps on his chest plate. "You're just jealous because you don't have guts to trust." "Correct," Kix said. "I lack guts entirely, which, incidentally, makes me less likely to be shot, stabbed, or eaten on this delightful little adventure." The banter eased the tension as the Vanguard's Edge approached its destination, the moon of Drelthar 4. The moon was a desolate place, its surface scarred by craters and dotted with ancient ruins. It was here, according to the Quarraths, that Lyrith had last been seen. Kyle brought the ship out of hyperspace with a jolt, the cockpit's displays flickering as the moon came into view. It loomed large and foreboding, its surface bathed in the eerie glow of its planet's rings. "Lovely place," Kale muttered, steering the ship toward a clearing near one of the larger ruins. "Think they have a gift shop?" "If they do, I doubt they accept your credit," Kix replied. The landing was smooth. Well, mostly smooth. The Vanguard's Edge groaned in protest as its landing gear settled onto the rocky ground. Kyle grabbed his plasma blade and a compact blaster, checking the charges before strapping them to his belt. "You stay here," he told Kix, "and miss the chance to watch you blunder through ancient death traps? Perish the thought." Kale rolled his eyes. "Fine, but keep your sarcasm to a minimum. I need to focus." The ruins were even more imposing up close. Towering spires of black stone jutted toward the sky, their surfaces etched with alien glyphs that seemed to pulse faintly with an inner light. The air was heavy with an unexplainable energy, making Kale's skin prickle. The This place gives me the creeps, he muttered. Creeps detected, Kix said, adjusting sarcasm levels to compensate. Kale ignored the AI and pressed forward, his boots crunching on the gravelly ground. The ruins were a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, some filled with strange machinery that hummed faintly, as if still alive. As they ventured deeper, Kale found signs of recent activity, scorch marks on the walls, discarded equipment, and footprints in the dust. Looks like we're not alone, Kyle said, his hand hovering near his blaster. Brilliant deduction, Sherlock, Kix quipped. The tension mounted as they entered a vast chamber dominated by a massive circular platform. In its center was a glowing orb, suspended in mid-air and pulsating with a rhythmic light. Looks important, Kale said, stepping closer. Looks dangerous, Kix countered. Kale examined the orb, noting the intricate patterns that danced across its surface. Before he could touch it, a voice echoed through the chamber. Step away from the artifact, human. Kale spun around, his blaster drawn. A group of figures emerged from the shadows, their weapons trained on him. They were a motley crew of species, each more menacing than the last. At their center stood a tall insectoid alien with sharp mandibles and a voice that clicked with every word. Who are you? Kyle asked, keeping his weapon steady. We are the Void Spire, the insectoid said, and you are trespassing. Kyle smirked. Trespassing? I thought this was a public ruin. Didn't see any signs. The Void Spire operative was not amused. Leave now, or face the consequences. Kyle glanced at Kix, who hovered silently at his side. What do you think? Should we leave? Statistically, that would be the smart choice, Kix said. Yeah, but where's the fun in that? Before the Void Spire could react, Kale fired a warning shot at the ground near their feet. The chamber erupted into chaos as the Void Spire returned fire, their energy blasts ricocheting off the walls. Kale dove behind a column, his plasma blade springing to life with a sharp hum. Kix zipped through the air, projecting holographic decoys to confuse their attackers. Next time, remind me to bring a bigger gun, Kyle muttered, deflecting a blast with his blade. Noted, Kix replied. Also, I suggest you duck. Kyle dropped just as an energy blast sailed over his head, hitting the column and sending shards of stone raining down. The fight was intense but brief. Using a combination of quick thinking and sheer audacity, Kale managed to incapacitate most of the Void Spire operatives. The insectoid leader, however, escaped, retreating deeper into the ruins. Coward, Kyle muttered, watching the alien disappear. On the bright side, Kix said, you're still alive. For now. Kyle shook his head, catching his breath. Come on, let's see what they were guarding. Returning to the glowing orb, Kyle studied it more closely. It wasn't just a random artifact. It was a data repository, its surface covered in encrypted files. Can you crack it? Kale asked. Do you even have to ask? Kix replied, extending a small appendage toward the orb. As Kix worked, Kale kept watch, his mind racing. The Void Spire's presence here wasn't a coincidence. Whatever they wanted, it was tied to Lyrith's disappearance. After a few tense moments, Kix beeped in triumph. Got it. The data points to an uncharted asteroid belt. Looks like that's where they took the girl. Kale sighed. Of course it's an asteroid belt. Why couldn't it be a nice, quiet resort planet? Because you're Kale Varan, Kix said, and nice, quiet things don't happen to you. Kale chuckled despite himself. Fair enough. Let's get out of here before more of those goons show up. As they made their way back to the Vanguard's edge, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was about to get a lot more complicated. But then again, he'd never been one to back down from a challenge. The asteroid belt stretched across the void, like a graveyard of forgotten worlds, its jagged rocks tumbling in a chaotic dance around a dim, dying star. Kale Varan sat in the cockpit of the Vanguard's edge, his hands steady on the controls as he navigated the treacherous terrain. The ship's shields flickered with every near miss, and the console chirped warnings with increasing urgency. Careful, Kale, Kix said, its voice tinged with mock exasperation. "I'd hate for us to become a permanent part of the scenery." Kale smirked, steering the ship around a particularly large asteroid. "Relax, Kix. I've got this." "Do you? Because the last time you said that, we ended up fleeing a space station with half its security force on our tail." Kyle chuckled. "Yeah, but we got out, didn't we? By ejecting the cargo bay. I'm still calculating the financial loss from that stunt." The banter helped ease the tension as the Vanguard's edge weaved through the asteroid field. Kale's target was a cluster of massive rocks that had been hollowed out and linked together by a web of metal and energy shields. It was a Void Spire outpost, hidden deep within the belt, a perfect place to stash a high-value hostage. As the outpost came into view, Kale leaned forward, studying the structure. The central hub was a massive, spherical station, its surface bristling with weaponry and docking ports. Smaller asteroids surrounded it, connected by energy bridges and housing various facilities. "Well, this looks cozy," Kale muttered. "Cozy isn't the word I'd use," Kix replied. "Heavily fortified, perhaps. Bristling with hostility, definitely." Kyle activated the ship's cloaking device, the hull shimmering as it blended into the surrounding darkness. The Vanguard's edge slipped closer to the outpost, its engines humming softly. "Any idea where they're keeping Lyrith?" Kale asked. "Based on the energy readings, I'd say the central hub is our best bet," Kix said. "Of course, getting there without being vaporized will be the tricky part." Kale grinned. "Tricky's my middle name. Funny, I thought it was poor decision-making." Ignoring the AI's jab, Kale guided the ship toward a smaller asteroid near the central hub. It appeared to be a storage facility, with minimal defenses and a docking bay large enough to accommodate the Vanguard's edge. The landing was smooth, and Kale wasted no time disembarking. He adjusted his armor, checked his weapons, and activated his personal shield generator. Kix floated beside him, its lens swiveling to scan the surroundings. "Remember," Kale said, "we're here to find Lyrith and get out. No unnecessary heroics." "Noted," Kix said. "Though I must point out that your definition of unnecessary is often quite flexible." The storage facility was dimly lit, its corridors lined with crates and containers marked with Void Spire insignias. Kale moved cautiously, his blaster at the ready. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the occasional distant clatter of footsteps. As they reached a junction, Kix beeped softly. 2 hostiles ahead, armed but distracted. Kale peeked around the corner. Sure enough, 2 Void Spire guards were standing near a control panel, their weapons slung casually over their shoulders. "Distracted, huh?" Kale whispered. "Let's keep it that way." He crept forward, his movements silent and deliberate. Just as he was about to incapacitate the guards, Kix's voice crackled in his earpiece. "Kale, wait." Too late. Kale lunged, only to step on a loose panel that let out a loud clang. The guards spun around, their weapons raised. Hi," Kyle said, raising his hands. "I was just looking for the restroom." The guards exchanged a confused glance, and Kyle seized the moment. With a swift motion, he drew his plasma blade and disarmed the first guard, the weapon's hum filling the corridor. The second guard managed to fire a shot, but Kale's shield absorbed the blast. "Next time," Kale said, knocking the guard unconscious, "I'll bring a map." "You're lucky they were incompetent," Kix said, floating over to the control panel. "Luck's got nothing to do with it," Kale replied, wiping sweat from his brow. Kix accessed the control panel, its lights flickering as it hacked into the system. After a moment, the AI chirped in triumph. "I've located Lyrith. She's in a containment cell on the central hub. Also, there's a patrol headed this way, so we should probably leave, quickly." Kale didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed a data stick from the console, hoping it might contain useful information, and sprinted back toward the docking bay. Back aboard the Vanguard's edge, Kale reviewed the data Kix had extracted. It included schematics of the central hub, guard rotations, and, most importantly, the location of Lyrith's cell. She's in the lower levels, Kix said. Heavily guarded, of course. Because why make things easy? Kale studied the schematics, formulating a plan. We'll use the maintenance tunnels to bypass the main defenses. Once we're inside, we'll create a distraction to draw the guards away from her cell. Ah, yes, Kix said. The classic create a distraction plan. Always foolproof. Kale smirked. You got a better idea? Several, but they all involve not being here. The plan was risky, but Kale had faced worse odds before. As the Vanguard's edge approached the central hub, he felt a familiar mix of adrenaline and anticipation. Ready, Kix? As ready as I'll ever be, the AI replied, which, for the record, is not very. Kale grinned. Let's do this. With the Vanguard's edge cloaked and docked at a hidden maintenance port, Kale and Kix slipped into the central hub's labyrinthine tunnels. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and machinery, and the hum of the station systems was almost deafening. Stay close, Kale whispered, his plasma blade at the ready. I'm a floating AI. Where else would I go? The pair moved cautiously, avoiding patrols and security cameras. As they neared Lyrith's cell, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap, but he pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. When they finally reached the cell, Kale was struck by the sight of Lyrith. She was unlike any alien he'd seen before, tall and ethereal, with skin that shimmered like molten silver and eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. Despite her captivity, she exuded a calm strength that was both unsettling and inspiring. Kyle Varan, she said, her voice a melodic blend of curiosity and amusement. I was beginning to think you'd never arrive. Kyle raised an eyebrow. You were expecting me? Lyrith smiled faintly. The Quarraths trust the prophecy, and so, it seems, do I. Kale shook his head, a wry grin spreading across his face. Great. Another believer. Less talking, more rescuing, Kix interjected. Kale deactivated the cell's energy field, stepping aside as Lyrith emerged. Let's get out of here, he said. As alarms blared and the sound of approaching guards grew louder, Kale couldn't help but wonder what he'd gotten himself into. But one thing was certain. The adventure was just beginning. The alarms were deafening, a cacophony of shrill wails and automated voices declaring lockdown protocols. Kyle Varan, with Lyrith at his side and Kix floating just behind, sprinted through the dimly lit corridors of the Voidspire outpost. The rhythmic pounding of boots on metal grated against Kale's nerves as guards closed in from every direction. Remind me again why we didn't just sneak out the way we came? Kale huffed, dodging a beam of energy that sizzled past his ear. Because someone, Kix said, its tone dripping with sarcasm, thought it would be a good idea to blow up the security console as a distraction. Kale grinned despite the chaos. Hey, it worked, didn't it? Define worked, Kix replied. Because if by worked, you mean we're about to be surrounded, then yes, congratulations. Lyrith, her silver skin shimmering faintly in the red glow of the emergency lights, glanced at Kale. Do you always argue with your machine companion in life or death situations? Only when it deserves it, Kale quipped, firing a shot from his blaster that ricocheted off the wall and struck a pursuing guard's weapon, sending it clattering to the floor. Lyrith raised an elegant eyebrow but said nothing, her composure unshaken. She moved with surprising grace, her long strides effortlessly keeping pace with Kale's. The trio ducked into a side passage, Kale pressing his back against the wall as he peered around the corner. The corridor ahead was clear, but the pounding of approaching footsteps grew louder. He activated a small device on his wrist, projecting a holographic map of the station. We're here, Kale whispered, pointing to a blinking dot. The hangar's 2 levels up, but the lifts are probably locked down. Of course they are, Kix said, because why make anything easy? Kale smirked. Good thing we've got a backup plan. Kix's lens swiveled toward him. Oh, this should be good. The backup plan turned out to be a maintenance shaft, narrow and grimy, its walls slick with condensation. Kale climbed the rungs with practiced ease, Lyrith following close behind. Kix floated alongside them, its spherical body barely fitting in the confined space. "This is cozy," Kix muttered. "I'm starting to understand why humans invented deodorant." Kale snorted. "Jealous you don't have sweat glands?" "Not in the slightest." As they ascended, Lyrith spoke softly. "You're remarkably calm for someone in such a precarious situation." Kale glanced over his shoulder. "Comes with the territory. Besides, I've been in worse spots." "Really?" Lyrith asked, her tone tinged with curiosity. "What could be worse than this?" Kale grinned. "Once had to escape a pirate king's flagship while wearing a tuxedo and no shoes. Let's just say the dress code wasn't combat-friendly." Lyrith's lips twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "And you survived?" "Barely," Kale said. "Lost a good pair of socks that day." And the maintenance shaft led to a service corridor just outside the hangar. Kale peeked through the access panel, his heart sinking at the sight. The hangar was swarming with Voidspire operatives, their weapons trained on the Vanguard's edge. A massive energy shield blocked the ship's entry ramp, and a squad of engineers worked furiously to disable its cloaking device. "Well," Kale muttered, "this complicates things." "Understatement of the century," Kix said. "They've locked down the ship. We'll need to disable that shield if we want to get out of here." Lyrith studied the scene, her gaze sharp and calculating. "If we can create a diversion, I can reach the shield generator and disable it." Kale frowned. "You sure about that? You've been cooped up in a cell for who knows how long." "I'm more capable than I appear," Lyrith said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Kyle sighed. "Fine, but if this goes sideways, I'm blaming Kix." "Of course you are," Kix replied. "I'm the obvious scapegoat." The plan was simple. Kale would draw the guards' attention while Lyrith made her way to the shield generator. Kix, meanwhile, would infiltrate the station's systems and create as much chaos as possible. Kale burst into the hangar with a dramatic flourish, firing his blaster into the air. "Hey, Voidspire, you call this security? I've seen better defenses on a vending machine." The guards whirled toward him, their weapons blazing. Kale dove behind a stack of crates, grinning as the barrage of energy blasts missed him by inches. "Classic Kale," Kix muttered, hacking into the hangar's control systems. Loud, reckless, and somehow still alive. Lyrith slipped through the chaos, her movements fluid and precise. She reached the shield generator unnoticed, her fingers dancing over the controls. The device emitted a low hum as she worked, its energy field flickering. "Almost there," Lyrith murmured. Meanwhile, Kale continued to taunt the guards, his voice echoing through the hangar. "Is that the best you've got? I've seen nerf herders with better aim." "Kale," Kix said, its voice crackling in his earpiece, "you're pushing your luck." "Luck's all I've got," Kyle replied, ducking as a blast singed the edge of his jacket. The shield around the Vanguard's edge suddenly dropped, and Lyrith's voice came through the comms. "The generator is offline. Get to the ship." Kyle didn't need to be told twice. He sprinted toward the Vanguard's edge, firing wildly to keep the guards at bay. Kix zipped ahead, opening the ship's hatch as Kale and Lyrith boarded. "Punch it, Kix!" Kale shouted, sliding into the pilot's seat. The Vanguard's edge roared to life, its engines flaring as it lifted off. The Voidspire operatives scrambled to fire on the ship, but Kale's evasive maneuvers kept them at bay. As the ship cleared the hangar, Kale activated the cloaking device, the Vanguard's edge vanishing into the void. As safe in the cockpit, Kale leaned back with a sigh of relief. "Well, that was fun." "Your definition of fun is deeply concerning," Kix said. Lyrith sat in the co-pilot's seat, her expression calm despite the ordeal. "You're an unusual man, Kale Varen." Kale grinned. "I'll take that as a compliment." Lyrith's gaze softened, a hint of gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you for coming for me." Kale shrugged. Hey, it's what I do. Besides, I wasn't about to let the Void Spire win. As the ship hurtled through hyperspace, the trio allowed themselves a moment of quiet, but Kale knew the mission was far from over. The Void Spire wouldn't give up so easily, and Lyrith's kidnapping was just the tip of a much larger iceberg. And for Kale Varen, the adventure was only just beginning. The Vanguard's edge drifted in the calm of interstellar space, its engines humming in a low, steady rhythm. Kale Varen lounged in the captain's chair, boots propped up on the console, a cup of steaming liquid in his hand. The drink was supposed to be coffee, but after one sip, Kale decided it was better suited as engine degreaser. Note to self, he muttered, never trust a vending machine on a Void Spire station. Kix hovered nearby, its lens fixed on Kyle. You know, if you're going to poison yourself, you might as well do it with something more efficient. Perhaps a shot of industrial coolant? Kyle smirked. Appreciate the concern, Kix. Really warms my heart. I'm an AI. Concern is literally coded into me. Unfortunately. Lyrith entered the cockpit, her presence as commanding as ever. Despite the chaos of their escape, she looked remarkably composed, her shimmering silver skin catching the soft glow of the ship's controls. She studied Kale for a moment, her expression a blend of curiosity and amusement. Is this what humans call relaxation? She asked, gesturing to Kale's slouched posture. Kale grinned. This is what we call recovery. Big difference. Relaxation involves less caffeine and fewer people trying to kill me. Ah, Lyrith said, taking a seat across from him. Then I imagine you don't relax often. Kale chuckled. You'd be right. The relative calm didn't last long. Kix's lens glowed red as an alert flashed on the main console. We've got company, the AI announced. A Void Spire cruiser just dropped out of hyperspace, and they're heading straight for us. Kale's grin faded. He swung his feet off the console and leaned forward, his fingers flying over the controls. The view screen lit up, displaying the massive cruiser bearing down on them. Its sleek angular design bristled with weapons, and its engines burned with an ominous red glow. Well, Kale said, this just got interesting. Interesting, Kix snapped. They outgun us, outsize us, and probably outthink you. I'd call this a death sentence. Kale ignored the jab, his mind racing. What's their comm frequency? Kix hesitated. You're not seriously thinking of talking to them, are you? Why not? Kale said, flashing a cocky smile. Sometimes words are mightier than plasma cannons. That's a lie, Kix muttered, but it transmitted the frequency anyway. The Void Spire cruiser's captain appeared on the view screen, a stern-faced alien with a rigid posture and an air of authority. His skin was a deep, mottled green, and his eyes glowed faintly, like embers in a dying fire. This is Captain Drax of the Void Spire vessel Oblivion's Claw, he intoned. Surrender immediately, or prepare to be destroyed. Kale leaned back in his chair, exuding an air of nonchalance. Captain Drax, is it? Nice ship you've got there, must be a nightmare to parallel park. Drax's expression didn't change. You have 30 seconds to comply. Kale raised his hands in mock surrender. Whoa, no need to get hasty. Let's talk this out like civilized beings. You are harboring a fugitive, Drax said. Return her to us, and you may yet live. Kale glanced at Lyrith, who met his gaze with calm defiance. Fugitive? You mean the person you kidnapped? Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that. Drax's eyes narrowed. Your defiance is noted. Prepare for annihilation. The comm link cut off, and the cruiser's weapons began to charge. Kale sprang into action, his hands flying over the controls. The Vanguard's edge banked hard to starboard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of plasma fire. Kix, divert power to the shields, Kale barked, and find me a way out of this mess. I'm an AI, not a miracle worker, Kix shot back, but it complied, the ship's shields flaring to life. Lyrith gripped the armrests of her seat, her calm exterior finally showing a crack. Is this part of your plan? Plan? Kyle said, grinning despite the chaos. You think I have a plan? Lyrith sighed. I should have known. The Vanguard's edge darted and weaved through the void, its engines pushed to their limits. The Void Spire cruiser loomed behind them, relentless in its pursuit. Kyle's evasive maneuvers kept them one step ahead, but the odds were stacked against them. Kale, Kix said, I hate to be the voice of doom, but we can't keep this up forever. Their weapons are calibrated to punch through our shields in 3 minutes. Kyle frowned, his mind racing. Then his gaze landed on the nav display, and a mischievous glint appeared in his eyes. Kix, plot a course for the nebula of 1,000 echoes. Kix's lens swiveled toward him in disbelief. You want to hide in a nebula known for collapsing starships and driving navigators insane? Exactly, Kale said. It's the last place they'll expect us to go. Because it's suicidal, Kix exclaimed. Kale shrugged. What's life without a little risk? And the Vanguard's edge plunged into the nebula, its hull creaking under the strain of the turbulent energy fields. Swirling clouds of iridescent gas filled the viewscreen, and the ship's sensors went haywire, unable to make sense of the chaotic environment. Okay, Kale admitted, gripping the controls tightly. This might have been a bad idea. You think? Kix snapped. The Void Spire cruiser hesitated at the nebula's edge, its captain clearly reluctant to follow. But after a moment, the massive ship pressed forward, its weapons firing blindly into the swirling void. Kyle grinned. Looks like they took the bait. And now we're all going to die, Kix muttered. Lyrith, to her credit, remained composed. What's your plan, Kale? Working on it, Kyle said, steering the ship through a narrow gap between two massive energy vortices. Kix, can we use the nebula's energy fields to our advantage? Kix hesitated, then its lens brightened. If I can reroute the ship's emitters, we might be able to create a feedback loop that— Do it, Kale said, and make it quick. The Vanguard's edge danced through the nebula, its engines screaming in protest. Kix worked furiously, rerouting power and adjusting the ship's emitters. The Void Spire cruiser followed, its bulk struggling to maneuver in the chaotic environment. Almost there, Kix said. Just a few more seconds. Better make it fast, Kale said, narrowly avoiding a collision with a swirling vortex. The ship's emitters flared to life, releasing a burst of energy that resonated with the nebula's natural fields. The resulting feedback loop created a massive explosion of light and sound, disorienting the Void Spire cruiser. Now's our chance, Kale shouted, pushing the engines to full throttle. The Vanguard's edge shot out of the nebula, leaving the crippled cruiser behind. As the ship entered the safety of open space, Kale let out a triumphant laugh. Another day, another daring escape, he said, leaning back in his chair. Lyrith shook her head, a faint smile on her lips. You're impossible, Kale Varen. And you're welcome, Kale replied, grinning. As the Vanguard's edge sped toward its next destination, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. But for now at least, they were alive, and that was enough. The Vanguard's edge cruised through the quiet expanse of space, its hull bearing fresh scorch marks from their recent escape. Inside the cockpit, Kyle Varen leaned back in his chair, boots once again propped on the console. The tension from their flight through the nebula of 1,000 echoes had dissipated, replaced by a strange calm. For Kale, that meant one thing: time to worry about what came next. Kix floated nearby, its lens fixed on a diagnostic display. Hull integrity is at 73%. Shields are at 50%. And morale? Well, that's anyone's guess. Kyle smirked. Morale's fine. We're alive, aren't we? Barely, Kix muttered. But sure, let's call it a win. Lyrith entered the cockpit, her silver skin catching the glow of the controls. She moved with her usual grace, though her expression was more contemplative than usual. She took a seat across from Kale, studying him with those piercing, crystalline eyes. You seem unusually relaxed, she said. Shouldn't you be plotting our next move? Kyle shrugged. Relaxed is my default state. As for the next move, I figured we'd improvise. It's worked so far. Lyrith raised an eyebrow. Improvisation is not a strategy. It is if you're good at it, Kale replied with a grin. The relative peace was interrupted by an alert from the ship's sensors. Kix's lens glowed red as it analyzed the data. We've got a ship on our tail, the AI announced. Small, fast, and closing in. Kale sat up, his grin fading. Voidspire? Kix hesitated. Number this one's different. The view screen lit up, displaying the pursuing vessel. It was sleek and black, its surface almost organic in appearance, with glowing blue veins running along its hull. Cal frowned, a sense of unease creeping over him. Great, he muttered. Another mystery ship, just what we needed. Lyrith leaned forward, her expression serious. That's not Voidspire, that's Ryzen Tech. Kale glanced at her. Ryzen? Friends of yours? Hardly, Lyrith said. They're mercenaries, ruthless and efficient. Kale sighed. Fantastic. What do they want? They're likely after me, Lyrith admitted. The Voidspire must have hired them. Kale's grin returned, though it lacked its usual confidence. Well, that's flattering. They sent mercenaries for you. You must be pretty important. Lyrith didn't respond, her gaze fixed on the approaching ship. The Ryzon vessel fired a warning shot, a bolt of energy that narrowly missed the Vanguard's edge. Kale took the controls, his fingers dancing over the console as he prepared for evasive maneuvers. Kix, give me options, he said. Option 1, run. Option 2, fight. Option 3, surrender and hope they're feeling generous. Kyle smirked. Let's call surrender Plan Z. The Ryzon ship opened a comm channel, and a holographic image appeared on the view screen. The figure was tall and imposing, clad in sleek black armor with glowing blue accents. Its voice was distorted, mechanical. Kale Varan, the figure said, you are harboring a fugitive. Surrender her, and we will let you live. Kale leaned back, his grin returning. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not in the habit of handing over my passengers. Bad for business. The figure tilted its head. Then you leave us no choice. The comlink cut off, and the Ryzen ship fired its weapons. The Vanguard's edge rocked as the shields absorbed the impact. Okay, Kale said, gripping the controls. Time for Plan A. The Vanguard's edge darted through space, Kale pushing the ship's engines to their limits. The Ryzon vessel was fast, matching their every move. Kix worked furiously, diverting power to the shields and weapons. We can't outrun them, Kix said. Their engines are more advanced. Then we outthink them, Kale replied. Kix, what's the nearest star system? Kix scanned the data. There's a binary system nearby. High radiation levels, unstable orbits, not exactly a vacation spot. Perfect, Kale said, steering the ship toward the system. Let's see how good these mercenaries really are. The binary system was a chaotic swirl of energy, with two suns locked in a gravitational dance. The Vanguard's edge plunged into the fray, weaving between asteroid fields and radiation storms. The Ryzon ship followed, its weapons firing relentlessly. Are you sure this is a good idea? Lyrith asked, her tone unusually sharp. Kale grinned. Define good. Lyrith sighed. You're impossible. The Vanguard's edge skimmed the surface of an asteroid, its shields flaring as it absorbed the heat and radiation. The Ryzen ship followed, its sleek design allowing it to maneuver effortlessly. They're not taking the bait, Kix said. Kale frowned, his mind racing. Then he spotted a cluster of unstable asteroids, their surfaces glowing with volatile energy. A plan began to form. Kix, can we trigger those asteroids? He asked. Kix hesitated. It's risky. The explosion could take us out too. Kale's grin returned. Risky's my middle name. I thought it was reckless, Kix muttered, but it complied. The Vanguard's edge fired a series of precise shots, striking the asteroids and triggering a chain reaction. The resulting explosion was blinding, a wave of energy that rippled through the system. The Rhizon ship was caught in the blast, its shields straining to hold. Kyle didn't wait to see the outcome. He pushed the engines to full throttle, the Vanguard's edge speeding away from the chaos. The ship emerged from the binary system, its hull battered but intact. In the quiet that followed, Kale leaned back in his chair, letting out a long breath. Well, that was fun. Fun? Kix said. We barely survived. Kyle smirked. Barely counts. Lyrith studied him, her expression unreadable. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Kyle grinned. Why not both? As the Vanguard's edge continued its journey, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. The Rhizon mercenaries were just the beginning, and the secrets surrounding Lyrith were becoming harder to ignore. But for now, at least, they had a moment of peace, and Kale intended to enjoy it. The Vanguard's edge hovered in the orbit of a luminous gas giant, its hull glinting under the soft, multicolored light of the planet's rings. Inside the ship, Kale Varan stood at the center of the cockpit, arms crossed as he stared at the holographic display in front of him. The image showed the destination of their final leg, an abandoned research station on the edge of the void, where Lyrith's abductors were rumored to be holding her daughter. Let me get this straight, Kyle said, breaking the silence. We're storming a heavily fortified station, outnumbered, outgunned, and relying on half a plan. Did I miss anything? Kix's lens swiveled toward him. You forgot to mention that our shields are at 30% and our weapon systems are, let's say, temperamental. Kyle smirked. Good to know. Wouldn't want this to be too easy. Lyrith stepped forward, her usual composed demeanor tinged with something softer. Hope, perhaps. We don't have to do this, Kale. This isn't your fight. Kyle turned to her, his grin fading into something more genuine. Lyrith, after everything we've been through, I think it's safe to say this is our fight. Besides, I've got a reputation to uphold. Can't let people think I'm all talk and no action. Kix muttered, Pretty sure no one thinks that. They're more likely to think you're insane. Kale clapped the AI on its metal casing. That's the spirit. The station loomed ahead, a sprawling construct of dark metal and jagged spires, its exterior glowing faintly with alien energy. The Vanguard's edge approached cautiously, its engines running at minimal output to avoid detection. Remind me, Kyle said as he adjusted the controls. What's the plan if they catch us? Lyrith raised an elegant brow. You improvise. Isn't that your specialty? Kyle grinned. Fair point. As they docked at a hidden maintenance port, Kyle armed himself with his trusty plasma pistol and a satchel of gadgets that might, or might not, work as intended. Lyrith carried a sleek, alien blade that seemed to hum with a life of its own. Kix, for its part, floated nearby, its lens glowing faintly. Try not to get us killed, Kix said. I've grown quite attached to this chassis. Kyle chuckled. I'll do my best. Inside the station, the air was thick with tension. The corridors were dimly lit, the walls adorned with strange, pulsating patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from the corner of the eye. Kyle took the lead, his movements cautious but confident. Creepy place, he muttered. Reminds me of that time I got lost in a wormhole casino, except this place doesn't smell like burnt nachos. Lyrith gave him a puzzled look. Burnt nachos? Kyle grinned. Long story. They navigated the labyrinthine halls, avoiding patrols and security drones. Kix hacked into the station's systems, guiding them toward the central chamber, where Lyrith's daughter was being held. Almost there, Kix said. But I should warn you, the station's security protocols are robust. Kyle smirked. Good thing we've got you then. Kix's lens glowed faintly. Flattery will not increase my efficiency, but it's appreciated. The central chamber was massive, its ceiling arching high above. At its center was a containment field, glowing with an intense blue light. Inside the field stood a young alien girl, her silver skin and crystalline eyes unmistakably Lyrith's. She looked frightened but unharmed. "Mom!" the girl cried, her voice muffled by the containment field. "Lyrith, get her out of there," Kale said, his eyes scanning the room for threats. "I'll keep watch." Lyrith rushed to the console, her hands moving with precision as she worked to disable the field. Kale, meanwhile, spotted movement in the shadows. "We've got company," he muttered, drawing his pistol. A squad of mercenaries emerged, their weapons trained on Kyle. The lead mercenary, a hulking figure clad in black armor, sneered. "Give it up, Varen," the mercenary growled. "You're outnumbered." Kyle grinned, his pistol humming to life. Outnumbered, sure. Outmatched? Not a chance. The room erupted into chaos. Kyle darted between cover, his pistol firing precise shots that sent sparks flying. Lyrith worked frantically at the console, her focus unshaken despite the commotion. Kix floated above, using its systems to disable enemy weapons and create distractions. "Kale," Kix said, "I hope you have a plan for when they bring reinforcements." Kale smirked. "Working on it." With a final keystroke, Lyrith deactivated the containment field. Her daughter ran to her, and Lyrith scooped her up, holding her tightly. "Are you okay?" Lyrith asked, her voice trembling. The girl nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I am now." Kyle glanced back at them, his grin softening. "Heartwarming reunion, but we need to move." They fought their way back to the Vanguard's edge, the station's alarms blaring around them. Kale's quick thinking and Kix's clever hacks kept them one step ahead of their pursuers. By the time they reached the ship, Kale was out of breath but grinning. "Another successful mission," he said, collapsing into the pilot's chair. "Successful?" Kix said. "We barely escaped with our lives." "Details," Kale replied, firing up the engines. The ship blasted away from the station, leaving their enemies far behind. As the station disappeared into the distance, Kyle let out a long breath, the weight of the mission finally lifting. Later, in the quiet of the ship, Lyrith approached Kale. Her daughter was asleep in one of the bunks, safe at last. "Thank you," Lyrith said, her voice soft, "for everything." Kale shrugged, his grin faint but genuine. "Hey, what are friends for?" Lyrith smiled, a rare and radiant expression. "You've done more than I could have ever asked. You've shown me that trust can extend beyond the boundaries of species and worlds." Kyle scratched the back of his neck, uncharacteristically bashful. "Well, don't get all sentimental on me. I've got a reputation to maintain." Lyrith chuckled, a sound that warmed the room. "Of course." As the Vanguard's edge sailed through the stars, Kale found himself reflecting on the journey. He'd started as a lone mercenary, a man who trusted no one and lived by his own rules. But along the way, he'd found something he hadn't realized he was missing, a sense of purpose and a connection that transcended the barriers of species and circumstance. For the first time in a long while, Kale felt at peace. And as the stars stretched out before him, he knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning of his adventures.